Good morning. So consider this. Statistically, 1 in 3 people in this really large, packed room has a criminal record. Maybe you do. You would not be alone. In the US, as many as 1 in 3 adults has a criminal record. This means that over 70 million people have the odds stacked high against them when they apply for a job, want to get a professional license, or are looking for housing. And this staggering number is just one snapshot into the reach of the criminal justice system. But this snapshot does not reflect the wrath that the system has had on the lives of whole families, whole communities, and whole generations. And we know that the justice system doesn't have the same kind of reach into every community. It is a system that, by design, has had a more violent, severe, and disproportionate impact on communities of color. Brian Stevenson, who leads the Equal Justice Initiative, he urges us to get proximate to the suffering and experience of inequality. He says, you cannot be an effective problem solver from a distance. There are details and nuances to problems that you will miss unless you get close enough to observe them. At Code for America, getting closer looks like user-centered design. But what does user-centered design look like in the criminal justice system? It looks like placing the individual at the center of the work, recognizing that those involved and impacted by the criminal justice system must be part of solving its greatest challenges. And it looks like disrupting the status quo and challenging the assumptions that we make about the system and about the process that hold us back from helping people at scale. So when you center the individual, you're fundamentally changing the system. Because it turns out that when we apply user-centered design to the criminal justice system, it means we're working to shrink the reach of the system. And this is some hard, messy, and transformative work. Earlier this month, I heard Ron Davis, the former police chief of Oakland and East Palo Alto, speak at a conference hosted by the Center for Policing Equity. It was a powerful convening aimed at mapping the geography of the criminal justice system to help us get a fuller picture for how we collectively can disrupt and transform it. Chief Davis said, we need to reconstruct a system that is contemporary with the issues of today, and not reform one that was designed to implement Jim Crow laws. Trying to reform that system, he says, is the definition of insanity. We will get the same results. At Code for America, we're working to transform the way government delivers services to those most impacted by the criminal justice system. But what does this mean? It means we're working to help government implement policies that decriminalize, decarcerate, and reinvest in communities by removing barriers to health, employment, education, and housing. Transforming the way government delivers services does not mean we're simply digitizing existing processes. No. Instead, we are working to fundamentally rethink processes and reshape the system, and to do so at scale. And we do this recognizing that we're joining decades of work and a groundswell of people impacted by the criminal justice system and from across the political spectrum who have had enough of the unjust and broken criminal justice system. So this morning, you'll hear from Brittany on how Code for Tulsa is leveraging design and technology to reduce the number of people incarcerated in jails. And you'll hear from Manya and Bob on what it looks like to reshape community supervision to be human-centered, community-based, and focused on what works to achieve positive outcomes for justice-involved people. But first, you'll hear from Jazmyn and Leah on what happened when we got proximate to the experience of someone denied a job because of a criminal record, making it nearly impossible for them to move on with their lives and contribute to their community. And you'll hear how this proximity is leading us to help serve millions by fundamentally rethinking the process. We are proud and humbled to be engaged in the work of disrupting and transforming the criminal justice system, to roll up our sleeves with so many others as we bring user-centered design to help create the conditions for a more just and equitable society. Thank you.
I'm applying to clear my record because I've done my time, I've paid my fees, I've gone to court and complied with everything I needed to do. But now it's like I'm being punished for the rest of my life off of my first and only offense. I want to move on with my life and make an honest living and give back to my community. But It feels like I don't deserve a second chance. I feel like after all of my hard work, I deserve it.
In the past 2 years, I've heard hundreds of stories like this from people who have a criminal record, and their story is very similar to this one. And in talking to people who have a criminal record, mapping out their pains with the way the system currently works, we've started to understand a really important problem about how people who have a criminal record and how the policies that are meant to help them are implemented on the ground so that they actually achieve the impact they were designed for. In 2016, we built Clear My Record to solve this very problem, to help the 5 million Californians who are eligible dismiss or reduce convictions from their record so that they can pass a routine background check and get access to the opportunities that people who have a record are typically left out of. We started simply by trying to connect people with attorneys in all of the counties that they needed help in. And since then, 7,000 people have used Clear My Record to connect with attorneys in 14 counties across California. But we want to be helping 5 million people, not just 7,000 people. So what's not working? Well, at the end of last year, we dug into this and collected our findings in a report with help from the California State Bar. And I'd like to invite Leah Wilson, the Executive Director of the State Bar, on stage with me to share some of our most important findings.
Hello. So the cover to the report is on the screen, and this report represents the first comprehensive effort to document the record clearance process in California. Simply documenting the process and the problems is really the first step in undertaking the fixes we need to reform this work for the people that need it. The report's most significant finding is one that is a bit surprising. There is an access to justice gap impacting record clearance in California. It's surprising because you don't typically think that there's an access to justice problem in criminal law given the right to an appointed public defender. However, we know that there are between 20 and 30 counties in this state with no record clearance services available at all. There are not enough attorneys available to provide services to the nearly 5 million people that need them. And even where attorneys are available, they often aren't in the right places where the need is, resulting in justice deserts throughout the state. In those counties with dedicated record clearance services, you find those services to be over capacity and under-resourced. So what can we do? On the policy side, we can work to fund more record clearances services. That's an obvious one. We can also work to reduce the application burden from people with criminal records and make the process more automated. And on the technology side, you all can help us to implement our policies more effectively and to help to identify the innovations that will lead future reforms, often by exponentially increasing available resources through the smart use of technology. Thank you for having me here today. I am so pleased that the State Bar was able to support this work, and please do check out the report if you'd like to learn more. Thanks, Sarah.
So we wondered, if attorneys are at capacity and there aren't enough of them, what if you could get through the process of clearing your record without requiring an attorney to walk you through each step? We shadowed attorneys and tried to find the hardest thing that they do and see if we could automate that. At the beginning of this year, we did that. We built a tool that allows you to upload a picture of your criminal record. Our tool scans and parses the criminal record to find the most important details. We plugged the details into a formula we developed that is the eligibility logic from the California Penal Code. And if somebody's eligible, we autofill the appropriate forms for them. This was a huge win. It was super exciting because it opened the doors to even bigger questions like, okay, so if we know that we can automate the hardest parts of the process for one criminal record, what if we could do it for all of the criminal records in a state or all of the criminal records in a county? Like, what if you didn't have to apply at all to clear your record, but the government agency that already has access to all of the records, like the District Attorney's Office or the Department of Justice, did it for you? The cool thing is, other people are thinking this way too. district attorneys across the country are starting to raise their hands to do what they're calling automated record clearance. And there's a huge opportunity for technological innovation there, like the prototype we just built, because when we looked into what automated record clearance really looks like on the ground, we realized that there's actually no automation involved. They're calling it automatic, meaning that you don't have to apply, but on the back end, government service workers are spending tons of hours working overtime, manually reading criminal records, manually shuffling paperwork, and sending that information to the courts. But last summit, if any of you guys were there, you might have remembered I said justice means getting the implementation right. It means that automation has to work better than that, because we're talking about 5 million people here who need help. So our solution needs to work at scale, and it needs to work efficiently. And so using the technology that we built, we think automation could look like this. This would allow us to scale to clear all of the records in one county or one state in one go, thousands of cases at a time, instead of requiring each of the 5 million people who have a record to navigate the really confusing process on their own, one by one. Thank you. I think it's exciting too. And recently, we just publicly announced an official partnership with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office to pilot auto clearance of marijuana convictions for all San Francisco cases dating back to 1975, using this tool that we built. And this is just a start. Thank you. We want to do this in 3 to 5 counties for 250,000 convictions by the end of the year. Our goal is to show people what automatic can actually look like. It should look like the law just working and applying to you whenever you become eligible. No paperwork, no overtime, no applying. We want to inspire people who have the power to change the system to make it how we want it to work, because we do actually have the tools to make it that way. I mean, just imagine how cool this would be. Imagine 5 million stories like this.
With clearing my record, I really think I have a second chance to live life with this confidence that if I apply for jobs, I'm going to get employed. It's such a relief. I feel like I can finally walk around with my head up high now that this burden has just been lifted off my back.
Personally, I do this work because I want to show people who have a criminal record that they matter, that our policies aren't a win until they're a win for them too. They're not a win until they have that job that they've been hustling for, or a roof over their head. They're not a win until all of the 5 million Californians who are entitled by law to clear their records can honestly say that now they can finally walk with their head held high because the burden of their past has finally been lifted from their backs. I think that's what justice looks like. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you go.
Hello again. When we talk about mass incarceration, we rightly start with the 2.3 million people currently confined in our federal and state prisons and jails. But this is just one slice of the pie. There are almost twice the number of people, 4.5 million, on probation or parole in the United States. Probation and parole were originally designed as alternatives to incarceration, but instead, they have widened the reach of the criminal justice system and the use of incarceration. And this is because technical violations, like missing an appointment or breaking curfew, often lead to an arrest and jail time. That's the slide. On any given day, over 500,000 people are held in county jails across the United States. 75% have not been convicted of a crime. They are being detained because they cannot afford to pay bail. We can do better. We have to. We need to rethink incarceration and invest in alternatives that are focused on helping people succeed and not tripping them up on technicalities. So 2 years ago, Code for America started conducting research with advocates, people with lived experience in the system, and with government agencies. Our goal was clear: help government reduce the number of people incarcerated for technical violations at the front end of the system before trial and at the back end on probation and parole. We launched ClientComm, a two-way texting tool in jurisdictions across the country to remove a key communication pain point experienced by clients and case managers. With ClientComm, case managers are able to send reminders about court dates and other deadlines to their clients. And research shows that reminders increase a client's experience of procedural justice while improving system efficiencies. With ClientComm, more people are making it to court, and fewer people are cycling back into jail and prison. But we've discovered that ClientComm fills an even deeper need. It is not simply a reminder system, but also serves as a relationship-building tool. And this is huge. Researchers have also found that a positive relationship between a case manager and their client is a key indicator in the client's ability to succeed. So we're building features based on research to help make it easier for case managers to send positive reinforcement to their clients. We're equipping case managers with the ability to connect clients at the click of a button to community-based resources when their client asks for help in securing housing and getting medical care or a job. So it turns out at Code for America, rethinking incarceration means we're working to reshape community supervision to be human-centered, community-based, and focused on what works to achieve positive outcomes for justice-involved people. And nowhere is that more clear than in Baltimore City.
So we are joined on stage by Bob Weisengoff, the Executive Director of Pretrial Services in Baltimore City. And last year, Maryland fundamentally shifted its approach to bail to ensure that poverty is not the reason that someone remains in jail before their trial. And last August, Bob and his team started using ClientComm. So Bob, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the why. Why did you start using ClientComm?
I'm into evidence-based practices, and there's research and anecdotal evidence that show that court reminders have a positive impact on people returning to court when they're supposed to. Most people have cell phones these days, and it made sense to send texts rather than mail a letter or even doing a phone call. I know from personal experience, if I call my daughters, sometimes they answer the phones, but they'll answer that text every time. So we had the experience, or not the experience as much as we had the research and the evidence of where we should go. We just didn't have the tool.
So let's talk about your favorite subject, which is numbers. So your department is responsible for the failure to appear in court rate and the rearrest rate while people are on supervision. So with all of the reform that was happening in bail, what were you expecting to happen in 2018?
We were expecting an increase. In October of 2016, when the bail reform movement started to take root in Baltimore, we had a low caseload of about 640 clients. It has since jumped to a high of 1,350. We haven't had an increase in staff or budget. We had to manage that caseload. I expected our failure to appear rate to rise and our rearrest rate to rise. That's not the case. That's not what happened. We started using ClientComm, and in fact, our rearrest rate went down. We were at about a 6.5% to 7% failure to appear rate. It actually went down to about the 5%, a little over 5% rearrest rate. And in February of this year, we had the best month we've ever had when it was about a 3.5% failure to appear rate.
That's awesome.
In my 32 years with pretrial services, there have been two major innovations. One was getting instant access to criminal history. That happened in the late 80s. The next is ClientComm.
That's amazing. And can you share why those numbers matter? What's at stake here?
I'll tell you a really quick story, then this shaped my philosophy on bail. It happened when I was a young investigator in the 80s. There was a fight at a bar called the Horse You Came In Orange Saloon. Great name for a bar. Two college kids got into a fight. One was African American, one was white. It was a knockdown, dragged out bar fight that could have been on television. Chairs were broken, bottles broken. They were both arrested. They went to jail. The judge set a $2,500 bail on each of them. The white kid was out in a matter of hours when his parents came down and bailed him out. The African-American kid stayed in jail for 30 days. He had to withdraw from school. He lost his part-time job. That's fundamentally unfair. Fundamentally.
And
so what we hope is that ClientComm convinces judges and gives them the confidence to release people, and that those people will show up for court. Therefore, less people like the African-American college student spend time in jail. Incidentally, both cases were dismissed, so he lost his liberty for 30 days for no apparent reason.
well, we are so excited to reshape that future of community supervision and work with you on that. Thank you so much for your partnership and for sharing your story with us here at Summit.
Thank you very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Brittany Berwanger.
I can't believe I'm standing here in front of you at this amazing event where we get to hear from real-life superheroes. I'm not one of them, I'll be honest. When Evonne called me to work out this presentation, I was in awe. Evonne has worked for the ACLU, worked for UPS. But while I spent my work life solving logistics problems, I am passionate about criminal justice. When I was 19, I was jailed for my inability to pay for a speeding ticket. It was a painful and humiliating experience that didn't make it any easier for me to pay for that speeding ticket. I'm lucky I didn't have kids that ended up in foster care. I'm lucky that my infraction was considered minor enough not to exclude me from future employment options. I'm lucky my time was short, as jail and prison are one of the last places we hide human rights violations in our nation. I'm lucky for a lot of reasons. Not for my memory, though. When I have an upcoming appointment, I set the maximum number of reminders Google Calendar will let me every single time. I started doing this because if I don't, I'll miss an appointment. In Tulsa, the only notification you get from an upcoming court date is a tiny sliver of paper they send you out the door with when you're leaving the county jail. No follow-up. My hair salon does a better job of making sure I remember to show up. An event I rarely miss, though, is our monthly Tulsa Web Devs meetings. Code for Tulsa has always had announcements and breakout sessions there, and I was interested in Code for Tulsa as an audience member long before I understood what it really was, or that we were a part of something so much larger. I stumbled into the CourtBot project because I just happened to be at a meeting when my now fellow Captain Carlos was pitching the idea. CourtBot sends text reminders about upcoming events in your court case. That's it. But this was exactly what I wanted to be able to do for years. Something that can help change the narrative for people who are unlucky enough to find themselves poor and on the wrong side of our criminal justice system in America. I didn't think it was much. It was a project I would get to make with my friends. Hopefully some good could come of it. And holy smokes, did some good come of it. Since we went live, we've sent hundreds of messages. We've even gotten some back. I have a friend who signed up along with family members for his sibling's case. They were excited that they could know when his court dates were coming up and make sure that he didn't miss one. Since then, he's made his court dates, and his sentence was greatly reduced from the best outcome their defense attorney thought they could even begin to hope for. He's now clean, and he's helping others. And while that's not all because of CourtBot, it is amazing to know that removing one of the many obstacles facing people in these situations helped make a real difference in the life of a man who is someone's father, someone's brother, someone's son. CourtBot started in Atlanta. It moved to Anchorage, and we continued their great work in Tulsa. Since us, Muskogee, Oklahoma has formed a brigade, and they're taking our work on CourtBot and improving it by making it even easier for municipalities around the nation to start using CourtBot in their communities. All you will need is a data feed and a phone number. CourtBot is now even in my hometown. I was thrilled when I got the email that Toledo, Ohio is forming a brigade, and they're starting their work with CourtBot. Las Vegas, Dallas, Sacramento are now working to bring CourtBot to their communities. I'm sure if you're at an event like Summit, it's because you're passionate about making a difference. I'm sure many of you have felt powerless at points to do so. It was easy to find volunteer opportunities when I was in school. They practically fall into your lap. When I graduated and joined the workforce, I didn't lose my passion for helping people, but I did stop finding easy opportunities to do so. And at some point, I started to feel powerless. I've spent my career working for various logistics companies. I don't even know how to get started doing anything that can reform criminal justice in America. Code for America was exactly what I'd been searching for, because now even I can be a change maker. I'm constantly amazed by how many members around the nation are doing amazing things in their communities in their free time. To be a part of Code for America is to realize how powerful all these people doing small things can be for real change. It's a bit surreal to be on the stage beside people whom I admire so much. But if I can be invited to be standing up here telling you I made some software with some friends that happened to actually change lives, you will amaze yourself with the difference that you can make in this world.